Yeah, we're recording. Yeah, he said we were going. Okay. All right, it's 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate you guys sticking around, and the CAC members, appreciate you guys coming in a little bit early for this. So this is our August steering committee meeting. I would anticipate we will have one more of these once we have the draft ready for action. So we will see. Well, get to the right place and maybe I can, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick review of the schedule and talk about the survey that we just launched, and then go over elements of the draft cost feasible plan, and we can certainly ask questions as we go along. I don't want this just to be me up here, kind of talking to everybody. Just to remind you, the elements, we started out with the goals and objectives. We looked at the data forecast. We looked at what that meant from a needs standpoint, looking at what we would need between now and 2050 to meet the mobility needs of the region. We looked at the financial resources, and as we talked about many times, we have a lot more needs than we do revenue to meet those needs. So we have less money actually than we had in the 2045 plan. And so we had to match up those dollars to the needs the best we could, and we came up with the draft cost feasible plan, which is what we're going to talk about today. And you should, I think Clark passed out a spreadsheet. You also got that as an email to the meeting announcement for the steering committee meeting. So you have it electronically, or you should have it electronically as well. If not, we can get it for you if you need that. So in the overall schedule, we are closing in on plan adoption. So we're reviewing this today, the draft cost feasible plan. Once we finish reviewing that here in the next few days, we're going to post it to the project website and open it up for public comment. We're going to let that run through the end of the month, and then we will come back in September. And again, we may or may not have a steering committee meeting because it's going to need to go to the TAC and the CAC for review and possible, well, we will make recommendations in November. So we'll see if we have a steering committee meeting or we just take care of this at your normal committee meetings. But either way, you'll see this one more time or two more times in September, and then for action in October. We do have to have this adopted by November. So there is a little bit of float if we have something that comes up that we can't take action in October. So we have kicked off the third and final survey. I think Marcy has given out some cards. We have plenty of extra cards. So if you are going to be in a position where you can pass these out to your colleagues or to the public, or to both, would be great. We're also finishing up some social media posts that we will share with all of the PIOs. And then if any of you, the Citizens Advisory Committee members, would like to post this to your personal sites and get your friends and neighbors to participate, we would love that. It did get launched late last week as part of the TPO's electronic newsletter. And as of yesterday, we had a little over 100 people already complete it. And so that was pretty good for 3 days. 3 work days worth of feedback. So it's going to run through the end of the month. The questions pretty much focus on the projects and the programs and that are proposed for the cost feasible plan. Again, it is more general versus the projects that are in here and telling people yes or no that they wanted to see that project funded. But again, so it is going to give us some direction though. And when we get into the cost feasible plan, we'll talk about the projects that are included in it. And as always, we would like and appreciate your help promoting this survey. We would love to have a couple thousand people do this. All right, the meat of the reason that we are here today is to look over the draft cost feasible plan. I will have some of it up here on the screen. It'll probably be easier to follow along on the spreadsheet, and I'll say what page we're on and whatnot. It includes projects that are in your current Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. Those are on the first column where it says TIP years, and all of that came straight from the Transportation Improvement Program or the local government's capital improvement program. So it's something that is pretty much committed, and that funding has been identified in one of those documents. It includes projects that are currently on the strategic intermodal system plan. Some of that we just got last week. They were updating the outer years to the year 2050. And then again, we are looking at our main goal when we went through this. And as I've said before, and I'll say it probably a few more times here today, we had less money than we had before. Project costs, as most of you know, have continued to increase pretty much like a rocket. So our goal was to make sure that the 20 major project priorities that you adopted were in this plan and scheduled or budgeted for funding for right-of-way and construction and design and PD&E if needed, that was going to happen. And we were able to do that. Barely able to do that, but we were able to do that. So let me, before we get to those, on page 2 of the spreadsheet is where the SIS projects are. And like I said, we just got some of this information last week because they're in the middle, well, they're at the tail end of adopting or updating the SIS strategic plan. And so I wanted just to call your attention, hopefully, depending on how it printed out, the numbers that are in bold, those are the new things that were added in the outer years for the 2030 to 2050 element of the SIS. So the third project down, 295 from Kings to south of the 95 North Interchange, there's right-of-way that was added out in that out year at $116 million. So those are the phases that were added that you see out there in those last 2 columns before you see the current priority price. So years 2036 through 2040 and years 2041 through 2050. If there's numbers in those columns, those are new to the SIS plan. So all of the ones that are near the top 3/4 of the list, those were new phases. But down at the bottom, where it starts after the First Coast Expressway, so I-10 at 295, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, those are all new to the SIS cost feasible plan. They're not all for construction. The first couple on I-10 are. The next ones, with the exception of I-95, are all for PD&E and design or just PD&E and right-of-way. But you can see there they've added a pretty significant amount of money for those projects in those out years. So those are new based on what they've done with the SIS projects. I don't have any information other than what you see on here with that. And again, it was just sent out. I doubt the district could even answer too many questions about those projects because they just came out from central office. We also have included the regional transit projects. That's on page 3. This was all provided by JTA. You can see most of these, if not all of these projects, are within the next through the year 2029. So that's considered the TIP years. So that's all of that has been included. And then beginning on page 4 for the other, and it's called the other projects, roadway projects, because that was the funding category that was provided. And what we've done is we've done the block grants, the TA, and the non-SIS funding. We've combined all that together to hopefully make this a little bit easier to review. But you can see here, these are the 20 projects, the TIP, or excuse me, the list of priority projects. They are not listed in priority order. You can see on the far right column what the priority is. This was an exercise in trying to make sure everything got funded. We have different amounts of money that are available in each one of these planning years. We have different inflation factors that have to be used. So for example, in the 2041 to 2050, the inflation factor is 1.91, so almost 2 times what it would be in current dollars. So it's a budgeting exercise that we had to go through to make sure that we could fund all of these projects. It is not written in stone anywhere that, for example, we just start at the top, the County Road 220 in Clay County will not be funded until sometime in 2031 to 2035. As DOT builds their work programs and the funding that is available, these projects can move back and forth between these planning timeframes. And as you've heard DOT talk before, and what I have said before, and I just said it 2 minutes ago, costs are increasing significantly for these projects. So I would fully anticipate things moving back and forth as monies become available. So I don't want, I mean, if there's something that you feel like would give the public severe heartache if they saw something out in 2041 instead of in 2031, let us know. I can try to move this stuff around, but again, when we start talking about costs that are inflated, 1.5 to 2 times the current year dollars, and we have to show this as a balanced sheet. It gets hard sometimes to make that work. Doug, do you have a question?
Would it be realistic to add? Obviously, resiliency is a term that gets used in a whole lot of different ways. But obviously, in projects such as these, there is a potential for enhancements from resiliency. For example, anything that's along A1A, like you have some in St. John's, you may be doing something. There's an opportunity there to enhance some resiliency, harden it, increase it, better drainage, flood management, whatever the case may be. You have a bunch of roads that are probably in floodplains that have had a history. So if there's a chance of putting a resiliency path and say, is resiliency a part or potentially a part of this project? That might open up an opportunity to get resiliency dollars on top of what your DOT or other monies may be. I'm just saying that's a good opportunity to enhance, because everybody in here has probably got a resiliency officer on staff. The state's got one, and they might be good to say, how can we enhance resiliency? And I'm a big fan of using other people's money when a project's already there, and I can do the project at peanuts on the dollar, and yet getting resiliency, and the state writes another check, grants and stuff like that. So that would be my recommendation, or to the group, is if you can tie resiliency to any one of these projects, and have your resiliency officers take a look at this, see what makes sense. It's its own planning business now, or planning discipline that most of your staffs need to have. I think that would be open up another cash bucket.
So what we can do, we did a resiliency analysis, looking at all the different potential impacts, whether it was sea level rise. Flooding is the biggest thing here versus, A1A and Mayport Road, probably the biggest ones for sea level rise, but everything else, anything running along the river or any close to the river was all, in the flood zones. So we have a resiliency program that has some extra dollars in it to help identify what type of hardenings would be appropriate when that study is done. But I do like your suggestion, and we will do this. We will tag each one of these projects that is in whatever type of zone it's in, and we'll identify that and tag it as something that may need some additional consideration from a resiliency standpoint. So we can do it. We already have that information, so that won't be difficult to do. And then if you guys, as you're reviewing that, if you see that we have tagged something inappropriately, you can let us know. But all of that information, Phil actually did this. It's an overlay that we did, and I was surprised at how widespread that would be, and it's a significant portion of the region that has roadways and any kind of infrastructure in it that is potentially at risk.
Well,
yes.
On the fourth project down on County Road 217, I think we got an improvement where it's widened to 4 lane. That has an ADT around 5,000 cars a day. It's a long way from ever needing 4 lanes, but it has a weight restricted bridge, and it causes a detour based on the department's paving laboratory on 301 that sometimes takes a 2-mile detour into a 20+ mile detour because of weight restricted bridge. We have county funds to work on the bridge. Is there any way that can be upgraded? Cause that is, and it does connect to Normandy, 228, which is the #1 priority road. That's one which may have some color resiliency. We're trying to, they'll change the pavement out there and close it down to, close 301 down. And at that point, the detour for trucks has to go all the way to Blanding Boulevard.
Because of that bridge.
It takes but they don't do that. They go down this road with a 10-ton weight restricted bridge. One day it's not gonna work. And the bridge is, it's getting old. It's 1947. So, it's got some.
Got some years on it, yeah.
It's got some years on it. We're willing to get into a match situation. But it doesn't need to be 4 lane. Build your 2050 plus for the traffic.
Okay. Well, it is the number 17 priority. But again, I put it in we put it in the up years just because of making things balanced.
We'll probably do something before it gets to, we'll have to.
Okay. Well, that will free up a little bit of money.
It
So,
won't be a 4 lane except.
okay.
Is there any benefit in changing that improvement?
Absolutely.
Okay. It'd be more like, shoulder improvements, safety improvements with bridge replacement.
Yes.
Right, he brings up a very excellent point that when you're looking at resiliency and a road may not need widening, but there are, a bridge, you may not recognize it as a bridge that we understand, but it's a flat bridge that goes over a major creek. Back in like 2010, let's call it, we had a bridge wash out and it was impressive to watch just to see it go boom. And the impact to the residents was now a 30-mile jaunt because there were no other ways to get around to the other side on the 301 side of 218. And this was about halfway. So when you're looking at road projects, it's traffic count, but there goes back to resiliency. There may be some bridges along there that you don't realize go to 1947 and just takes that right storm, right time, and boom, it's gone. So that's a good point. And it's a horrific impact to the citizens.
Okay. All right. Mario, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I sure do. And forgive me because, maybe this is backtracking a little bit, but probably won't surprise anybody. There are a couple items that I take a little bit of exception to because, this is our chance to plan out as far as we can. And I understand that, we can't necessarily answer for the sins of the past, but I'd bet that most people would agree that our rough roads are Southside, Blanding, Beach, Atlantic, all the 2-lane roads that have grown into 4-lane have grown into 6-lane. We all know, or I guess on the traffic side, that as you add lanes, it's not a linear increase in capacity, it's a degrading increase in capacity. Furthermore, what you need, I guess classic example would be like State and Union by the TPO. What you need in rush hour, the rest of the day, it's just a wide open speedway. It's not necessarily the safest for pedestrians to cross, not even the safest for vehicles. It ends up being we need to accommodate peak capacity, but at off-peak times, we're basically paying just for the peak few hours of the day. If we're planning in advance, which is the goal of this, I think, I understand widening interstate, limited access, no issues there. But US 17, the 6-laning, and then County Road 2209 widening to 6 lanes. I'm not super supportive of those, and I know I know it's like I'm trying to turn the Titanic here, but I at least want to offer that feedback that I don't think if we're planning ahead that just continuing to widen arterials is going to help us get to 0 deaths or severe crashes. And I don't think it helps our reliability of transportation either when you clog up one massive road. either. So just offering that feedback on those two particular projects that I see.
Okay. Thank you. Bernie?
I would just note that on that 2209, and just this is just in the description of the improvement, looks like part of it is cut off.
Yes. Yeah, the joys of converting stuff to a PDF, right? So that, and that particular project had a couple of elements to it. So this should be on page, I think it's on page 4, right? The bottom of page 4.
Yes.
So-
Sorry, I thought.
Yep. So just so I fixed it on my copy, and I'm sure if Clark printed out what I sent, then it's still cut off. So I apologize for that, but it's 9B to Silverleaf Parkway, widen that to 6 lanes with intersection improvements. And then the second element to that is Silverleaf Parkway to 16. It's going to be designed as a 6-lane and constructed as a 4-lane. So that's the last little piece that's heading down to, and this of course is mostly underway right now. But that's the idea. So they've got enough. They pulled in this case they have enough right of way. So in the future, it could be 6-laned, even though it may never be. But the option is there. There's a lot of traffic on that part of 2209.
Extra right of way is never a bad thing. Just, the eventual 6-laning is something that seems to be plaguing our region. And it's not different in other cities, Orlando, you've got OBT and other death traps, but I don't think we want to create more.
Wally,
Yep.
we hear the term from President Obama, shovel ready.
Yes.
We've got a couple in Clay County that are with right-of-way permitting and plans. Does that have any effect? And they're on the list from our bond credit program, which I would take your 1.9.
Yeah, right.
We would probably build. We didn't. It's more like a 3.9. Felt like. Does that have any effect to the?
Yeah. I think, and you guys have all heard this in this room before, right? The shovel-ready projects, when money becomes available through whoever, whether it's a federal bill or the state bill, or somehow there's money for transportation projects. Typically, what my observations have been, when you get that kind of money, whoever has sponsored that money and gotten that money, they want to see projects. They want to see asphalt or whatever it is. They don't want to see a PD&E study or design, because the public does not see a PD&E or design. So yes, if those projects are shovel ready and monies become available, you could see again these projects move into the current years.
How do we get that money through Jeff and Clark and
I think, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think a call for those kind of projects usually happens. I don't know that it necessarily drops out of left field. It could, but most of the time, if it's something that came from the feds, for example, the district would ask, hey, who's got shovel ready projects that meet this criteria? And if everybody raises their hand who has it, and the list gets sent in, and then decisions get made on where to spend that money. And usually there's always strings tied to all this stuff. So, it's gotta line up just right. But that's been my experience seeing this stuff happen.
I think, if you have that knowledge, certainly coordinating that to Jeff and myself, and then to Jim Knight and DOT, so that we're aware of that. Certainly helps.
Yeah.
And it's legit. We had money to do the design, right-of-way acquisition, bond acquisition, but not the asphalt.
I'll just ask if you are speaking, if you can unmute your microphone so everybody online can hear you. Looks like Eric, you had a question.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Green, you're good.
All right. I just had a question on the 95 lanes. Is that widening them to include express lanes, or is that just general purpose lanes? Doesn't specify on there.
So you're on page 2.
Yeah. just the interstates.
Which 95?
I mean, all the interstates, they
All
all
of-
they widen to,
So about the middle of the page where it says improvement, the only one that had a note in the CIS cost feasible plan that was construction of managed lanes was the 95 that is almost at the bottom of the list, next to last one, from Martin Luther King to south of 105. That was the only one that had a note for construction of managed lanes.
okay, so all the rest of them are just general purpose lanes.
That would be my understanding from the CIS plan, which what you're seeing right here, this description, that's what's in the plan. So we can ask and inquire more about what these are. But given the codes that were associated with each one of these, we are making the assumption that that last one there is the only one that is for managed lanes at the time being.
Okay, can we just clarify that with them?
Yeah, we can work towards that. Yes.
Comment?
Yeah, a lot of questions about the transit section. One, I'm not fully believing that all these projects can be implemented by 2029. And a lot of them indicate the phase, this is on page 3 of Wiley's spreadsheet, indicate a phase called implementation. So what does that include? Is that, doesn't include O&M? And if it does, it should have money in all the years going out, unless it's only going to run through 2029. Any of the JTA folks here answer?
Yeah,
we're
still working with the CPO to clarify the list, so we'll have more information.
Okay.
We got your questions to them yesterday, so they're looking at them and working through them, and we'll provide specific responses to all your comments. But certainly, if you have any additional questions or anything you'd like to bring before the committee here.
I guess one of the big ones, looks like purchasing about 100 autonomous vehicles. Where are you going to maintain those? The thing you're building on Bay Street is only designed for 20. And if you need a new maintenance facility, that should be another project in here. That is one of the questions I asked, but I thought wanted to bring that up.
All right. I'm happy to go through the 20 projects that we've included. But again, they're not new. These are your current list of priority projects, but not in priority order. Whatever the pleasure of the committee. I do want to say that, point out the programs or the box funds that we came up with. So the bicycle and pedestrian box, that is funded through the carbon reduction funds, because that's a good way to reduce carbon, is to have better bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So we put that entire budget into that box. The Greenway and Trails box, the ITS Smart Cities box, that's the things you hear presentations on each month. We have a context sensitive solutions or complete street box, freight enhancements, and then here's the resiliency. And all of those can be studies, or they can be monies that go to enhance projects, to include projects, say from the bike ped master plan or from the freight master plan, et cetera. So there's a lot of flexibility in those boxes, but they're all of these are tied back to specific studies or master plans, really. So the bike ped box is tied to the TPO's bicycle pedestrian master plan, Greenway and Trails, the Greenway and Trail regional plan, the ITS Smart Cities master plan, The contact sensitive solution, those are a lot of projects that come out of other studies that the TPO does. So those would come from a variety of ways, places. The freight enhancement box is from the Freight Master Plan that I believe you had a presentation on a couple months ago. And again, the resiliency program, we've done a study to determine where those are, which are a lot of areas. So that's where those come from. Is there something else in the chat, Phil? Okay, Mario is asking about the carbon funds. I'm not 100% sure, Mario. I think we are taking those, but that might be subject to change at any given time. But we're assuming that they are going to be available, and that we're going to use them in the bike ped arena. All right. There any other questions for me? Again, I would ask that everybody take a few minutes to kind of go through this, look over the projects. If there's any questions, any comments, any thoughts that you have on them, if there's if we've put right of way in and you know that you've already got the right of way and that's not going to be required, let me know. That'd be great. We could add a little more money to some of the boxes or maybe bring in another project. Yeah, Bernie.
I know I've done this before, but I forget. Can you elaborate more? Can you elaborate more about we were required to put these projects in certain year bands, and then so they make it in the long range plan. But then when it comes to putting them in the TIP, how critical is it that how critical is it that they're in the right year band? Isn't it just a test, a checkbox, like it's in the long range plan? Okay. Doesn't matter what
yes.
year band it's in, or is it important?
I think the way that this has been generally looked at, and if DOT wants to clarify this, I welcome their comments as well. It needs to be in the cost feasible plan.
Yeah.
The revenue projections are up and down every year, right? So there's more money, there's less money, then there's more money, there's less money, whatever it might be. The costs also fluctuate, obviously. So I am not aware of any hard and fast rule that, hey, you put this in 3640, you cannot do this in 2930. But if it is not in the cost feasible plan, that's a different story. Then we would, in all likelihood, have to amend the cost feasible plan to include that project. And if we did that, it still has to balance. So if a new project comes in, we would probably have to take a project out unless costs have changed somewhere along the way and we have more money or something might cost less. We would still have to show a balanced cost feasible plan. But I have not run into a situation where that has happened. We have run into situations where project limits were severely wrong, and there's a couple of them down here that are really long.
Project
Descriptions. Those things change, and if it's a significant change, so if we said, and I'm just going to, Mario, forgive me, we said it was going to be a 4-lane road and then it's going to be a 6-lane road. That would probably trigger an amendment. We have some of these projects, a lot of these projects have not had a PD&E study done on them. So US 17 from Lim Turner, for example, we have that going all the way up to 301 in Nassau County. Well, a PD&E study could go that long, but a design, right away, and construction phases are probably not going to be that entire length. So that project, as it goes through the process, there are going to be segments of that project that begin to move forward. Hopefully that will coincide with the next long range plan. But if not, that would be a situation where before it could spend federal money, at least on a design phase, for example, we would probably have to go in and amend the long range plan to meet whatever those segments are. Because they want to see plan consistency. And again, this whole the bands of years, planning periods, this is still, I think this might be the 3rd long range plan cycle that we've actually had to do this. So this is still relatively new in the process. Relatively speaking. So yes. Yep.
So the 5 years, if it's out of the first 5 years, then it's a modification. If it surpasses the second 5 years, then it's an amendment that can take up to a year. So the ban years do matter. So if while
Okay.
having a project that has funding in 2036, which is outside of the first 10-year ban, that will cause a trigger to LRTP. So it does matter up to a higher point. And we don't encounter that very often, you know, I mean, it was have to be, money had to fall out of the sky, basically, to have that project be completed.
Yeah, I've not had, we've done this for, we've not seen this happen. But to that point, you know, again, if you see something that we feel really needs to be closer up, we would not be moving anything into the 24-29 period. That's the TIP. So we could not move something from any of the planning bands into that planning band. But we could potentially move things. There's not a lot of money in 29 to 30 because that's only one year. And then there's more money in a 5-year period from 31, or it's a 4-year period from 31 to 35. And then there's more money in the other ones because they're longer. But again, the inflation factors are pretty significant in those out years. So if there is a project that you feel like should happen sooner for right away in construction, you know, let me know, and we will try to move that up and rebalance everything. And the sooner you could let me know that, the better. Okay, so that should go ahead. You got another question? Good. Trying to get this thing to work again. All right. So the next steps, again, to review this, give us comments, we'll refine it as need be. We're going to continue our outreach to the community. I have a presentation to St. Johns County early next month. If anybody else would like a presentation, let me know. I'm happy to come meet. As I've said before, I can fill up a half hour, I can fill up 10 minutes, whatever you need. We got the survey that's going out, or it is out. And then late this week or early next week, we're going to post this on the website for public review of the draft cost feasible plan. So that's our next couple steps. We'll be back again next month to present a refined cost feasible plan, and any comments that we've gotten from the public, we'll be sharing all that with you as well. And then we can continue to move forward. There won't be action in September. The action would be asked for in October. And that's all that I have for you. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. Bernie, go ahead.
Sorry, Paul.
No.
I assume you are still going to include the needs plan in your documentation of this plan update.
Yep.
You'll have a needs plan that has everything in place.
Yeah, so that has not changed other than the CIS projects that were added. Those were added to the needs plan.
Yeah.
So yeah, none of that has changed since you guys have seen that last. We had a road in Nassau County spelled wrong, so that changed, but there's no significant changes. And when you see this on the website, Federal Highway likes to have the unfunded needs listed as part of the cost feasible plan. So we will be doing that, which will make this go from about 5 sheets to 10 sheets. But yeah, but just, and I'll have a nice big header. We'll have a big header, so you don't have to worry about looking further down, but we will have the unfunded needs as part of the cost feasible plan, which I can't follow that logic, but that's what they want. So, okay, well, that's all I have for today. So thank you all. And again, please help us promote this survey. There's a sign-in sheet going around. If you haven't signed in, please hit that before you leave the door. Everybody gets credit for being here. Everybody online, since you were online, we have your names, and we'll put you down on the list as well. Let me make sure there's not another question. Okay, Mario, thanks. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. And if there's any questions, feel free to get with Clark or myself, and we will get you some answers. And we look forward to any comments and thoughts y'all have. So thank y'all very much.
Joining. Appreciate it.